classification, Darul Harb and they don't have the classification of Darul Kufr into Darul Harb and Darul Ahd. They consider Darul Kufr is equivalent to Darul Harb. And this is quite important, because you remember when we said that some Hanafi jurists considered the land where Muslims feel secure as the land of Islam, and some thinkers quote this from the Hanafis, and they said that European countries are considered to be, or can be considered as Darul Islam. We need to tell them that you have to consider the other classification of the Hanafis, and you have to look at it, because the Hanafis, they don't differentiate between Darul Harb and Darul Kufr. So they don't say that Darul Kufr is classified into Darul Harb and Darul Ahd. They consider Darul Kufr is equivalent to Darul Harb. What about Darul Ahd? Do the Hanafi scholars neglect the fact that there might be a treaty between the Muslims and the Darul Kufr, whereby there is no war between them? They don't neglect this, but they say even if there is a treaty between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, still the land governed by the non-Muslims and governed by the non-Islamic laws is considered to be Darul Harb, although it is in a state of agreement or a treaty with Muslims.
Can you give some explanation in terms of examples? I mean, for example, the time of the Quraysh and Hudaybiyah, I mean, would this be a classification that could be used?
Yeah. The Hanafis, they still call that Dar, although it has a treaty like the Quraysh, they consider it as Darul Harb. And this is what many people who quote the Hanafis, they try to ignore or overcome this reality. And that's why we tell them, no, if you are quoting Hanafis, you have to be precise in quoting Hanafis, and you have to mention this. And you cannot just eliminate this.
It's like picking and choosing, not taking the whole ruling.
Exactly. And if we are talking, if this discourse is an academic discourse, then we have to bring everything into perspective, because the Hanafis, all of the Hanafi scholars have mentioned this. And the Hanafi school of thought is one of the well-established school of thought. Many Muslims, actually some people say most of the Muslims are following the Hanafi school of thought.
Yes.
And we are benefiting from the legacy of the Hanafi scholars. All of us, the whole Muslim world is benefiting from the legacy of Abu Hanifa, etc. So we have to quote the Hanafi school of thought accurately. And we have to mention this thing. Now, whether we accept it, we don't accept it, this is something else. But we have to quote it correctly. Now, the Hanafis, as we said, they don't classify Darul Kufr into Darul Harb and Darul Ahd. As we said, they classify Darul Kufr, or they equate between Darul Kufr and Dar al-Harb. This is very important, because once we discuss the issue of the permissibility of riba in non-Muslim land, all those who claim that it is allowed to deal with riba, okay, or to deal in riba in non-Muslim land, they quote who? They quote the Hanafi scholars. And this is very, very problematic. Because if you are quoting the Hanafis, it means that you are implicitly accepting their notion that this land is Dar al-Harb.
No, you've said this now, and it's very interesting, because I think we need an explanation to say, well, what are the consequences of accepting that this land is Dar Harb? What are the consequences?
Exactly.
What do we need to make clear that's obligatory upon the Muslim when he accepts this consequence?
Okay. Now, this point that you have mentioned is a very crucial point. Now, once we say that it is Dar al-Harb, many people and many groups, they fall into this trap. And it is good. We don't want to hide things. We want to explain things. Once they consider this land as Dar al-Harb, then all consequences of Dar al-Harb, okay, are considered according to them inevitable. means, okay, Dar al-Harb, we are allowed to maybe kill, we are allowed to rob the people's money, we are allowed to steal, we are allowed to even not to implement other parts of al-Islam, even if we are living there. And that is totally wrong. And because of this connection that some people have established, the other thinkers who don't want this to happen, they came to this notion or to this classification, and they said, we don't need to be bound by this classification, let us just discard it and look for another classification. And this approach is wrong, because this approach has been established in our books of al-fiqh. We cannot discard it, but we have to understand it correctly. And this is where many of the contemporary thinkers went wrong. They discarded this classification in order to bring their own classification, which will not be accepted because it is not supported nor by the Quran or the Sunnah, nor it is supported by what the fuqaha,
there's
the
no lineage
fuqaha,
to this.
stated. But if they say, okay, if you classify the Dar al-Kufr, or if you classify the abode, the globe, into two abodes, Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb, means Dar al-Harb you are allowed to kill, you are allowed to steal, and you are not allowed to leave some ahkam of Sharia in that. We say no. Who said that? Once we say that this is Dar al-Harb, then the consequence or these consequences are inevitable. No. This has to be clarified. It might be Dar al-Harb, but still, okay, we do not implement all the rulings that the fuqaha mentioned about Dar al-Harb, such as, okay, that the Harbis, okay, the Harbis have no sanctity of for their wealth and their life, okay. Why? Because they are considering them Harbis,
people that they're fighting against, basically.
Yes. Okay. People are fighting against Islam. But we say, in Dar al-Harb, from a classical point of view, when the Muslim country sends some messengers to Dar al-Harb to negotiate something, although it is classified as Dar al-Harb, those messengers, when they go to that land, they are not allowed to steal, they are not allowed to kill, and they have to finish their mission and come back, and they are not allowed to portray those, they are not allowed to betray those people living in Dar al-Harb or the Harbis, although it is classified as Dar al-Harb.
Okay, we're going to look into these classifications a bit deeply just after this short break. Please do stay with us on Living in the West. Hey everyone, check this.